this video, we are going to learn how to create a histogram. There is a few rules about histograms that we are going to have to note, okay? One is that the bars must be connected. So if you want to write that down, the bars in a histogram are always connected, and it is always going to be a range. So if you notice, I've already made this where the histogram is going to go. I've made room for my histogram here. This here is going to represent 0 up to 20, and the next bar will be 20 up to 40, and so on. The easiest way to do this if you're given a number set like this that is out of order is you need to make what is called a frequency chart. Okay? A frequency chart is going to take these ranges and put them in one column so that you can tally however many times that happens in the second column. So this is going to be your range, and this is the number of points or data. We would also call it data. So you just copy whatever your range is going to be. I have a range provided for me. If you didn't, you could pick your range. If I wanted to, and I was doing a different histogram, I could go from 0 to 10 and 10 up to 20, 20 up to 30, if I thought that would better represent my data. So, but we are given one, so I'm going to write it. So you'd start with 0 to 20, and then 20 to 40, and so on. Then you are going to look at your data and you're going to count how many things are in this range. I forgot an N, didn't I, guys? So I'm looking for any number that is 0 up to 20. Okay, now that means not including 20. 20 is going to be counted here, just like 40 is going to be counted here. So I'm going to go, and this one is, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to check all the other numbers. There are none. There are 4. Okay, then you're going to look for anything that is from 20 to 40. 1, 2, 3. Now, not all data sets are going to be this ordered in number. Like, these aren't ordered exactly in number, but they seem to be mostly ordered on digit. Some of them can be very mixed up and very random. So just remember that. We're going to look for 40 to 60. Now, this is 1, 2. Okay, and you might be tempted to put this 60 in here. But remember, this is 40 up until 60. So this 60 goes in the next bracket. So that was 2. Now from 60 to 80, I am going to count again. I have 1, 2. This 60 counts now, which is 3. But this 80 does not, because this is up until 80. So that was 1, 2, and 3. And then this is going to be 80 until 100. So we count our 80. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, once you've done this several times, this will be really easy for you. I'm slowing it down, obviously, so you can see what I'm doing. But once you have your frequency chart, that's what this is called, you're going to make your histogram. Now, your first bar on your histogram is going to go all the way at the 20, and it's going to be 4 high. You don't have to color these in if you don't want to. The next one is going to be 3. Your next one is going to be 2. Then you have a 3. And a 4. Okay. And you have completed a histogram. Now, if you notice something cool about this histogram is that it is symmetrical looking. We could say that this data is mostly symmetrical. I could put a line here and it is even on either side. So this data is symmetrical, but you would notice that it is not bell-shaped because it has 2 high points. So this is what we would call bimodal data. It has 2 high points, but it is also symmetric. So even just by making a histogram, there is a lot you could tell about the data. It definitely is really good for telling you the shape of the data. If you wanted to, you could find the exact middle by counting how many data points there were and finding out which bar it's in, but you wouldn't be able to find the exact middle unless I gave you this data. You couldn't find the exact middle just looking at this chart. So that is something that a histogram does not help you with. And that is how to make a histogram, which you will need to be successful at in order to complete Learning Target 1A. In this video, we are going to be learning how to create a dot plot, which is one of the skills you do need to know in order to be successful at Learning Target 1A. A dot plot is considered to be one of the easier representations of data. It starts just like all of the data representations we have do on a number line, okay? And we're going to make a number line. We weren't given a number line. A lot of times we are given a number line, but we're going to look at our numbers and we're going to see how they go. If you're not given a number line, you have to find a number line that fits your data. That's the hardest part of creating a dot plot. The rest is really easy. So I see that these numbers are in order from smallest to biggest, which is going to help us out. And I see that this goes from 90 to up to 119. So if I round this down to 90 and this up to 120, I need a number line that starts, around 90 and is going to end around 120. Now, you don't have to do by ones. A number line isn't always by ones, and sometimes that's okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where I think 10 would be. So if this is 90, where would 100 be? So I'm going to say that this is about here. We have about 100. And then I'm going to go again, and I'm going to say this is 110 and then 120. So I split it up where my 10s are, and I'm just going to, to make it easier, I'm going to put another half this, and this is 95. Half this will be 105. Half this will be 105. And then I'm not going to number these, but I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if I needed to. That's the hardest part of a dot plot. Then all we're going to do is we're going to make dots to represent where our data is. We have one dot at 92. So we're going to go over to 92 and we're going to put a dot. We have 3 dots at 95. So we would go over to 95 and we would stack up 3 dots, one for each data point. Okay. And then we do a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But at 98, so 95, 6, 7, 8, we would put 1 dot because there is 1 data point at 98. Next one, 100, 3 data points. And I probably shouldn't have done this line so big. So just like this, I'm going to continue the rest of this while I also explain to you what is nice about a dot plot. A dot plot shows you all the data. You can see exactly where the data is collecting. It's very easy to find the mode if you're using this type of representation of data, because you can see which numbers have the most values assigned to them. If you forgot this from middle school, the mode is the number that occurs most often in data. So if like the number 15 comes up a lot of times, that would be the mode. There can be more than one mode. If 2 numbers both appear 5 times, they're both the mode. If no number appears more than any other number, there's no mode. Didn't catch that numbering thing right there. You guys probably did. So that is a good thing about a dot plot. You can see every point of data. You can see exactly how it's spread. The mode is really easy to find. And if you were not given this list of data, this would be a way you could find the median and you could find the mean using this, because you would have the specific data you needed. So I'm just going to finish this up. As you can see, 6. As you can see, 6 or 119 here would definitely be the mode with 6 dots. So this would be the mode of this. You can also see that this data is very wide. This is going to be data that has a large spread. Okay, it's also, I would consider this bimodal. See how it has a high here and it also has a high here. It's not symmetrical. And so those are things you should always look for after you create a representation of your data. You should always look for this, for the spread, for the center, and for the shape. Those are the 3 things that we will continue talking about in this unit. And that was how to create a dot plot. In this video, we are going to go through how to create a box plot. This is most popularly called a box and whiskers plot. You'll see why when we do this. We are given a sentence, and this says a student is interested in the age of dogs at a local park. So they took a survey of 15 pet owners at the park, and they asked the age of their dogs. This is the data of their survey. This is the age of all the dogs in the park at that time. So we are going to need to create a box and whiskers plot to represent that data. Okay, the first thing you have to do when you're creating a box and whiskers plot is you need to make sure the data is in number order. That means it needs to be ascending. I usually put it in ascending, which means smallest to greatest. So if it's not, which ours certainly isn't, you have to put it in order first. If you do not put it in order first, you will not get the correct median, and then you will not get the correct Q1 and Q3. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm going to look and I see I have 2 1s. So I'm going to write 1, 1. And then I look for 2, no 2s, but I have 3. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 3s. And so I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have to separate them with commas. I do that so that I don't accidentally think that this is 13 or this is 34. There's 4. There's one of them. I cross off my numbers as I write them down so that I do not miscount them and so that I make sure I do not miss any of them. I highly recommend people who start off creating box plots to also do this strategy because it will save you errors. There's no, oops, there's 1 5. So I will add that to the list. And then there's 1 6. I will add that to the list. And then no 7s, but 2 8s and 2 9s. Okay, and a 10. And an 11. Now, if you have big handwriting like me, you might want to make sure you do start closer to this end of the page and that it is legible. So step 1, our numbers are in order. It has to be done every time you create a box plot. So then you need to know what you're looking for. So when you're making a box and whiskers plot, you need to know your 5-number summary. So that is the next thing that you start to find. Now the 5-number summary, if you have your notes, which we were supposed to take before we got to this video, you will know that it's the minimum, which I will abbreviate minimum, the maximum, or the Q1, it is the maximum, but the maximum will always be at the end. I like to put them in order. Okay, the median, which I will abbreviate, and then the Q3. Now the median is also sometimes called Q2. So if you ever hear someone saying Q2, they're referring to the median, okay? So the first 2 are really easy to get, the min and the max. So the min is going to be at 1, it's our lowest number, and the max is going to be here at 11, it's our biggest number. Then the number you find next is the median. Okay, so you find the min, max, then you always find the median before Q1 and Q3 because the median is the exact middle of this data. Now to do this, some people cross out the numbers, that's fine. What I do is I do dots. So I start counting into the center. So if I mark off a 1 here, I have to also mark 1 here. If I mark 1 here, I have to. You have to make sure that you're having equal amounts on each side. So if I mark 1 off here, I've got to mark 1 off here. And if I mark 1 off here, I've also got to mark 1 off here. And if I mark 1 off here, I am going to mark 1 off here. Now, one of 2 things is going to happen once you get to the center. One, the first thing that could happen is that there will be 1 number in the middle. If there is 1 number in the middle, that is your median. You're done. Now, something else can happen, which is what has happened here. I have 2 numbers in the middle. Okay? When there are 2 numbers in the middle, the median is the middle of those numbers. So to do that easily, you can just take 5 plus 6 and divide that by 2. That happens to be 5.5 right now. So that is equal to the median. So our median is 5.5. It is absolutely okay for it to be a fraction. Most of the time it will be a 0.5 fraction, or I mean decimal, excuse me, and that is fine. That could also be written as a fraction, 5.5, if that you like that better. So then after you have found our Q or our Q2 or our median, which is right here, 5.5, we can now find our Q1 and our Q3. Q1 is going to be the middle of this half of our data, and Q3 is going to be the middle of this half of our data. There is an important thing you must take into account when you're doing this. Do you notice how our median was in the middle of two numbers here? When it's in the middle of two numbers in the data set, we're going to use these numbers. This 6 and this 5 are part of my calculations. But let's say, for example, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as your data set. And I know that the middle of these is 3. So my median for this is 3. But if you circle a number in your data set, you are not going to count that when you do your Q1 and your Q3. So you'd find the middle of this for your Q3 and the middle of this for your Q1. So now that I know that I have got to find the middle of these numbers, I tend to do a different marker for my Q1 and Q3. I go on the top, and as you notice, there's 3 numbers on this side and 3 numbers on this side, and then there is a 3 in the middle. So this is going to become my Q1, 3, and I do the same thing over here. I've got to put a mark over each of these, and a mark over each of these, just finding the exact middle. And if you look over here, you can see that 9 is the number that ends up in the middle on this right half of the data. So I know that my Q3 is 9. Now that I have the number summary, I can start creating my box plot. I have a number line here that has been provided. So we need to mark these numbers. Now this is 0 and this is 5, but if you notice, there's 4 marks in here. So that must mean that each of these is 1 unit. So if I want to go to 1, I'm going to go 1 and do a line. I'm going to go, now I make a small line for my minimum and my maximum. So 10, 1 more is 11. Okay. And then I need 1 line at 3. So this is 1, 2, 3. I need a line here. I need a line at 5.5. So this is 5 and this is 6. So 5.5 is going to be somewhere in the middle of those. And then I obviously need a line at the Q3, which is going to be 9. This is 10. 1 less than 10 is 9. Okay. Now, now you have your lines. You need to know where to make your box. Your box is always going to be the 3 middle lines. So all you have to do to make your box is connect the 3 middle lines. And then you have your minimum and maximum. And those just get connected with a line. So as you can see, you have a box and you have what people call whiskers. Okay, so this box and whiskers plot is great for showing you the spread of data. It's also great for showing outliers. We haven't done the work to see if any of these were outliers, but outliers are very easy to calculate using a box and whiskers plot. You can see here that our data is actually quite spread, and this tail or this box seems larger than this box. So there might be a tail on the data to this direction. This is the direction the data seems to be pulled. I would call this skewed slightly to the right. So the shape of this would be skewed to the right. Now, one of the shortcomings of a box plot is if you were just given this plot, you can find the median, but you would not be able to find the mean unless you were given this exact data, which sometimes you are not. You are just given the representation of the data. And that is how to create a box and whiskers plot.